In this video, I'll give you my take on two of the most popular types of clay. Welcome to air dry versus polymer clay. To show you the pros and cons of each of these, I'm going to be creating two identical sculptures, one from air dry clay and one from polymer clay. So let's get sculpting. I've prepared two identical armatures. If you want to see more of how I build my armatures, you can actually check out this video above. Make sure you stick around until the end of this video to see the final result of each sculpture and some of the surprising differences. Let's start with air drying clay. As the name suggests, this type of clay will dry and harden naturally. That means it does not need to be fired, baked or molded. This in itself is of course a huge pro, as it's super approachable and easy to use, even for kids. There are different brands of air drying clay, and today I'm using Jovi. Depending on the brand and of course the thickness of your sculpt, the clay will generally be fully dry in 1 to 3 days. Even after a couple of hours, you can feel a slightly crunchy shell starting to form. So it's important that you keep your clay moist and wrap it up when it's not in use. Pro number 2. Because the clay is water-based, you can actually use water to smooth the surface. I love using a brush as a tool and the soft finish you can achieve this way. The trick is to not use too much water or it will weaken the final sculpt and you risk that it cracks when it starts to dry because that water is evaporating. Let's see how things are going on the other side. For this sculpture, I'm using Super Sculpey Premo. Polymer clay comes in many different brands and colours and hardnesses. Premo is on the firmer side, but you can easily soften it just by kneading it a little bit in your hands. Unlike air dry clay, polymer clay will never dry out, so you can actually revisit an unfinished sculpture even a month later and just continue right where you left off. You need to bake it in an oven for it to harden, and this might seem like a con, but really it's quite easy. Just make sure that if kids are sculpting, the baking should be supervised by an adult. The advantages of baking is that you can do it in different stages. So for instance, I can bake what I have made so far, which is really just a roughly blocked out shape, but once it's baked, I can handle it without damaging it, and that makes it so much easier when I start adding details. This clay can be a little bit sensitive to heat, so if you're working in a warm climate, that means the clay can get sticky and it might start to attract dust and pet hair and that sort of thing. Now I can start adding details to my shape. I'm using a small loop tool and I'm gently carving out fine lines. Then I use a dry brush to brush away the excess that I've carved out. Another way to add details is by adding pressure through a sheet of thin plastic, like a sandwich bag. This way the details come out a little bit softer, but a lot less messy. I'm still using the same tool, but instead of carving, I'm just adding a slight pressure. The antennas I'm sculpting separately over a strip of garden wire to support their shape, and now I'm joining them up with the body. At this point, I'm about to pre-bake the body of the snail, so let's see how the air dry clay is going in the meantime. Here I'm also adding details by carving out with a small loop tool, but as you can see, it's a much messier process in this type of clay. But it is possible to get some quite sharp lines by letting the surface dry slightly before adding the details. You can even speed this up by drying the surface with a hairdryer. Just be careful not to over dry it or it will crack. Back to the polymer snail. After pre-baking the body for about 10 minutes, the clay isn't fully baked, but it's firm enough that I can touch it without ruining the details. And this makes it so much easier to handle when sculpting the shell. Once the shell is finished, the whole sculpture will need to bake in the oven again for another 20 to 30 minutes. Every brand is a little different, but the average bake time is 10 minutes per 5 mm of thickness at 130 degrees Celsius or 265 if you use Fahrenheit. Just like we used water to smooth out the air dry clay, you can also smooth and soften polymer clay, but this has to be done with isopropyl alcohol. It gives a really nice finish, but don't use excessive amounts and don't use it around children. So, after completing both sculptures, here is what I thought. At a glance, they might look pretty similar, but there are some important differences. I let the air dry sculpture dry for 3 days, and though the overall finish looks good, there are a few small cracks
and the antennas have completely snapped off because they were too thin. Air dry clay is great to work with because it's so easy to use, it dries on its own, and it's child friendly. But it's not as doable as polymer clay. As you might have guessed, polymer clay is my personal favorite. It stays workable, you can bake it in stages, and the final sculpt is very doable. Thanks for watching air dry versus polymer clay, and remember, if you have any questions, you can let me know in the comments below. Bye!